Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today I'm on my own. I'll have a guest later today for next week's podcast, but today I am just on my own, pondering and wondering about some things. And what's occurring to me today are some questions. I am very curious by nature, and questions just come to me sometimes, and I don't always know what to do with them. So I have a question for you if you're listening to this. And the first question is, how well do you know yourself? And then when you do know yourself, how good are you at accepting who you know yourself to be? I've done a lot of assessments, self-assessments. Strengths Finder is the one that's occurring to me right now because it focuses on what you're strong at, not necessarily what you need to improve. And so as I think about those things that make me me, and I start really embracing those things, what I'm learning about myself is I'm very unique. And it has seemed to be, I could be wrong about this, but it has seemed to be difficult for me to find a community that really supports who I know myself to be and to actually attract what would I say? Not a following, but attract a community of people who are interested in the same things I am. So I'm wondering how effective any of us can be with the ideas we have without a community. Is it possible to succeed on our own? I'm of the mind that we all succeed together. Together, everyone achieves more is an acronym for team that I've heard. Um, if we get good at asking for what we need or asking others to participate or for their opinions or those kinds of things, I believe that's a way to start attracting a community of others. Um, and then my question is, how does one attract others to one's idea, especially if it's a new idea or seems to be a new idea, a creative, crazy idea? I'm watching my community where I live in Fargo, North Dakota, Fargo Moorhead. Moorhead is right across the river in Minnesota. And I'm just watching some things today, just today, that occurred in my Facebook feed this morning. And one is an event for women called, it's a women's planning or goal setting event, and the organization is called You Flourish. It's a young woman I've known for many years, and she's just very, very dynamic. And there's a whole community around her, hundreds of women in this space getting together today to work on their goals. And I am so what would be a word? I'm not envious, I'm not jealous. I'm so proud, weirdly, of Kelsey as she's developed this group. And I think about me 20 years ago, and that is kind of where I was. I was so interested in having events and doing things and finding ways to attract people. And since that time in my own life, I've sort of not evolved. What's the right word? I've shifted in my priorities. And things that were important to me back then are still important, but there are other things that are taking that place. And some of those are more deeper philosophical, evolutionary, um, emergent kind of conversations that are more compelling to me. And what occurs in that space to me is that then the community becomes much smaller because in my observation, it just feels like fewer people want to talk about those kinds of deep um, strengths, those deep aspirations, those philosophical and maybe existential kind of questions. Maybe that's age. Maybe it comes with age. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just interested in seeing how others in my community seem to be much better at attracting or engaging with bigger groups. And then I'm wondering how does one do that? There is a marketing plan for things. There are funnels and funnel hacking and all that kind of stuff that's out there. And I'm wondering if that's necessary in order to gain momentum. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm watching one thing that just I'm seeing it new in my community. 19 hours ago, there was an article on Facebook about it's called Skate Street. And this is such a cool idea. I'm just going to read you this article from the Extra newspaper. I don't even know what that is. But Skate Street sparkles in Viking Ship Park is the headline. Freezing temperatures, no problem. As the last slick veneer of ice is added this week, excitement over Moorhead's newest winter attraction is definitely heating up. It's called Skate Street. The slick, icy thoroughfare follows a long abandoned avenue along the Red River north of the Yumkomst Center, and this is in Moorhead across the river from Fargo. Brightly lit by night, the picturesque skating venue slides along the historic local neighborhood once called The Point, now better known as Viking Ship Park. The polished frozen parkway is the brainchild of Dan Molly, Anna Kahn, and Steve French. Molly and French, an innovator who calls his business Special Projects FM, have history. They created Mary's Tunnel in January 2021, the celebrated brightly lit structure that drew hundreds of visitors to the park and, says local legend, hosted several marriage proposals. Together with Khan, the FM Community Theater's Minister of Magic Making, they've been working since before Christmas to create a romantic alternative to hockey rinks for those whose blades skim the ice. So, three people got together who are very creative and have their own personal connections and thought, we want to do something and we're just going to do it. So it says, we wanted to add more fun to our public space, Dan Molly explains. We do 3 seasons really well. Why not four? In Fargo Moorhead, winter is not one of those 3 seasons. Um, Working on a shoestring budget, the trio has been, sorry, working on a shoestring budget. The trio has built a sparkling January wonderland. Visitors are greeted by 4 imposing panels incised with snowflakes. They enter a path illuminated by strings of overhead lights, pausing to don their skates on 13 hand-hewn benches built from lumber left over from theater sets. Skate Street may be offering a fresh take on the riverside, but it follows a historic route. The area now encompassed by the park was long known as the Point, the original settlement in what was to become Moorhead. Its blocks of dilapidated houses were demolished in 1971 after years of disastrous flooding, along with the random rickety old saloon. That cleared the way for Viking Ship Park. When the neighborhood disappeared, the street that crossed it evaporated as well. Only the stately elms that lined it remain. Now they flank the iceway that fills in its footprint, waiting to welcome new generations to the historic riverside. Molly expects Skate Street to reach peak form in coming days, depending on the weather. Skating on the river just isn't feasible these days, he observes. This is going to be even better. So it says they did this on a shoestring budget. They got together, they had an idea. They said, I don't know how they did this, but it occurs to me that did they ask for permission? Did they have to get somebody's approval? Did they need a bunch of money to do this? I don't know how this actually happened. I just know that if there is a will, there's a way. And this is just one example. This, along with the You Flourish planning event that's happening today, somehow, some way, an idea is being spread and people are being attracted to it. TEDx Fargo is like that too. TEDx Fargo, I heard, I don't know if this is still true, but at one point it was the largest TEDx event anywhere because somebody had an idea to put this together. And this community where I live has a lot of innovative people in it. And there are people who are very interested in being part of things. I love that about this community, and I'm struggling a little bit with my own ideas in this community because I'm not finding the way to gather people to ideas I have. And I'm wondering if it's because my ideas are getting more, um, what's the word? Getting more crazy, um, finding less mass. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm I'm not interested as I used to be in goals per se. I'm much more interested in momentum. I'm interested in ways to gather with other humans that allow everyone to learn something from each other. That's the term I use, dialogue, which is the definition of which um, I'm very careful with. Dialogue is the agreement we all have to suspend previous assumptions when we come together so that we can learn from each other. And I think back to, I don't even remember when it was, 2009, 10, 11, somewhere in there. I had an event that I just did. I just did it. It was called the Bigger Small Talk Summit. And I didn't know what I was doing. I really just would go. I just do things when I have ideas about them. And it was a fun event, but it didn't grow. It happened, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. And I had Dick Richards who came all 3 years, and he's an author from Arizona, and he shared with us his process for creating a statement that he called our genius. We spent a day discovering what is our genius, what is it that makes us unique, and we gave it a name. And it was really fun, and it caused people to think deeply about themselves and what I would call now their strengths or their unique beingness. Back then, there were people who came, not a lot. We didn't really gain momentum. It was pretty much the same people who came back each of the 3 years. And I'm in the same space right now with my chill out event that I started in 2023. We had one in 2023, 2024, and now 2025. I'm just wondering what is missing that if it were present would have more people be interested. And that's where I struggle. And I'm wondering, it must be me. I'm the common denominator in all these things. So what am I not seeing that's preventing big no, how can I say this? That's preventing growth, maybe. Preventing growth. I look at what Kelsey's doing with her group, and oh my goodness, I'm so happy to see that it's growing every year. Hundreds of people are coming to this event. There are events happening over time that are growing, and my event is not growing. And I'm wondering what I'm doing to restrict that growth. Is it that I don't understand marketing? That I'm not good at self-promotion? What? I don't know. Do I not understand the funnel of things? Um, I'm just not sure right now. And I'm wondering if there's anybody else out there who's ever felt a little stuck or felt that I'm doing what I know to do and it's not producing the results I say I truly desire. That means must have to do something different. And so, or differently. I must have to do something differently. And maybe I have to do something completely different as well. And so I'm just curious about that. Is there not a market for deep existential thought and pondering and wondering, and then taking action based on what occurs in that space? Is that not a market that is open to growth? I don't know. Am I being too possessive and not open enough to allowing other people to come in? Could be. I could certainly be my own worst enemy here, and I'm just not sure. So the things that are really compelling me these days feel more like a pull than a push. Feel more like a pull towards something. And the people I'm listening to now and really digging in with are Simon Sinek, have been since I first learned about him in 2009. His work and his conversations with Trevor Noah and some of the other people he's having these deep conversations with. Rick Rubin is another. They are what's compelling me right now. And I don't find traction in my local community that way. So maybe it's not about my local community. Maybe it's more about a global community. I don't know. And in that space, it feels very overwhelming to try to figure out how to engage a global community with ideas about personal development, deep personal development, leadership, communication. When I have ideas about things, I I'm kind of, well, I'm very impatient. I just go. I just do. I wrote a book called Just Give a Shit. Just came out. right before Christmas, and I don't know how to promote it. I'm not good at promoting it. I think it's a great book. It's a little book. It doesn't take very long to read, very easy to digest, but not very easy to actually implement because it takes a lot of personal reflection and development. Could that be it? Could it be going back to, Jim Collins' work in Good to Great back in 2000, a long time ago, when he said that level 4 leaders are very needed in the world. Level 4 leaders lead with charisma and have a lot of people follow them because of their charisma. Level 5 leaders in his book Good to Great were the ones who don't have a huge following because they don't have name recognition and charisma necessarily. Yet they were the ones who took their companies from good to great. So it's a smaller group. Of the 1,435 companies Jim Collins researched back then, only 11 made the cut for what he was looking for. Am I trying to play big in a really small pool? Am I like, is it not possible to attract a lot of people to the ideas that I want to explore? Maybe. So then I wonder, what is my purpose? What am I here for? What am I made for? I feel like I'm made for the time I live in right now, which is to bring people together instead of continuing to divide. I feel like there's a big market for that. I just don't know where to go fishing. And I was asked to be a moderator for an event a few weeks ago after the election, and this was of a group of people who are really pretty distraught about the results of the election. And they asked me to moderate, and oh, okay, I'm not an expert in politics. I'm really not an expert in anything they were talking about. But what happened was they'd ask questions of me and I would give my take. I would say, "Well, if I were you, I would do this." I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm just saying through my lived experience and my understanding of things, I might try this. And it was amazing to me how many of them said, "Oh my gosh, I'd never thought about that. Thank you for giving me a different perspective." I feel like that's something that I'm made for. And yet I can't quite find the audience for that because it feels more like people are more familiar with their discomfort than wanting to move into a direction that would give them a new way of being that could provide new results. It just feels like our familiarity is preventing us from moving in a new direction. And sometimes I look at myself and go, "Am I the crazy one? Should I stop wanting to expand my own mind? Should I be different than I am?" But this has been the story of my whole entire life. I don't think so. I don't think so anymore. I really, truly, in my heart of hearts, believe there is a community somewhere of humans who together could explore these concepts, build something together that can be financially successful and also move the needle a little bit toward more conscious awareness, conscious leadership. As the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership says, it's moving from below the line to above the line, becoming more open, curious, and committed to learning instead of staying closed, defensive, and committed to being right. The process of moving above the line is what I'm most interested in, not in a specific outcome. And maybe that's the problem because when I sell, if you will, sell an idea like this, people want to know what's the outcome. The last couple of weeks, I've had an opportunity to facilitate dialogue with a couple of clients. One was a nonprofit. And what I did is for an hour, just went to their organization and said, "Here's what I know about the topic you've asked me to talk about. It's not a lot. I'm not an expert. I'm not even in your field. I don't do the work you do. But here's what I'm observing. Here's what I'm noticing. When this happens, here's an idea." And from what I observed, there was a market for that. That organization felt to me open, curious, and committed to learning. That organization paid me a fee for doing that, and I got some feedback that said, "Thank you, I appreciate that." So I think it's out there. I'm just not quite sure exactly how to gain momentum. And maybe that should be my word for 2025, momentum. The word I've chosen as of now, January 10th, is elevate. But maybe my word is momentum. As I ponder that, what would that mean if I could gain momentum for the things I'm working on? Just things I'm pondering today. And as always on this podcast, my hope is that people will listen into the podcast and then do something in their lives to get real, which is radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused. These are the four pillars, I suppose, that the book Just Give a Shit has inside it. It's the subtitle of the book is Dare to Care, Get Real, and Transform Your World. Very short, simple book, but has a call to action for people. It's taking action, doing something different. I'm not saying better, I'm saying different. The only way to get to better, if that's what we truly desire, is to go through different first and to make friends with change because that's what's going to be required for us to experience a different outcome if that's what we want. So, those are my ponders today. If there's anything you've heard that you want more information about, please contact me. Subscribe to this podcast, tell your friends about it. I guess that's the way that we can gain momentum is having people tell other people. Instead of buying ads, I just feel like it's better when people who experience something can share that with the people in their world. And then together we can I don't know if it's too big to say change the world, but change the world, make a dent in our worlds. And that's what I'm here to do. So thank you, everybody. As always, get real. We'll talk again.